Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Picking Bones. Today we have a very exciting episode for you today because we're going to talk about Freemasonry with an ex-Freemason. We're going to get to learn a bit about what it was like for someone to actually be inside of the lodge and just hear some of their experiences. So let's jump right into it. Welcome, Gabe, to the channel. How you doing, bud?
Hey, Eric. Thanks for having me. Doing
Yeah,
good.
definitely. I'm excited to have you on, hear a bit about your experiences. So, can you start off by just telling us how did you become a Freemason?
Yeah, so I became a Freemason through my stepfather. So I had some family relations who, just one day sitting on the can, came across one of their monthly newsletters, which they have for the local jurisdiction. I'm like, oh, it's interesting. I've heard the Masons before. You come across, I guess in the normie realm, you come across the name and the conspiracies that they have a lot of influence. So asked him a couple of questions about it, and eventually he posed a question like, "Oh, do you want to join? I go to X Lodge, this X location. These guys are great. You'll really like it. It's about making good men better." And at the time, I never been part of a fraternity, so I figured, hey, why not? Went to college, missed out on the fraternity life, so I figured give it a shot. And was brought to a lodge. Everyone wore business suits. I liked the aesthetics. I liked the idea of hanging with the boys. So one thing led to another, and eventually I was initiated and joined the lodge.
So it wasn't everyone wearing the lambskin aprons and the whole Masonic garb every time you went in.
Lambskin is that's the thing they wear over their waist, right? That bib that they wear over the
Yeah,
crotch.
exactly,
Um,
exactly. The crotch bib. Yeah, that's a good way to
um,
describe it.
do I still have that? I don't. I think I and you're not wearing a shirt and you're wearing some kind of goofy cloak and you're blindfolded. So uh,
Mhm.
you've already been through worse before you really take any notice of the crotch bibs.
Excellent. Good to hear. So tell us a little bit, like how high did you get into masonry?
All right. So I recently read Michael Witkoff's Masonic, what is it? Masons and Their Lies. This is a quick
Hmm.
refresher. And it was a good refresher because how you enter in Masonry after the initial 3 degrees is really up to the user. I mean, not the entrant for it. So I only got up to the 3rd degree Master Mason degree, which is the most basic Blue Lodge level. Beyond, but I did see people from the York Rite Masonic lodges and the Scottish Rite Masonic lodges. The Masonic Rite were probably the Scottish Rite Masonic lodge were probably the most notable because they had these. I think they wore red felt hats, which was kind of goofy. Um, but that's where the people who are more involved enter. I was never more than the kitchen boy. So I was just kind of like, oh, I want to hang out with the brothers. I want to go drinking and smoke cigars with the guys. So I never got too far into the symbolism. I was a little enamored with the symbolism, but I never really went full bore with it. So I was just pretty low level. I only got up to Master Mason and pretty much stopped there. I was too lazy to do anything else, really.
Hmm. Would you say that was the case for a lot of masons?
Oh yes, oh yeah. A lot of so some masons, they can actually be pretty involved in masonry and never really get the occult element to it. Um, and I think most of the masons that I came across were like that. The vast majority of them that I came across were like that. Even people who ended up being master masons for the lodge, not master masons for the lodge. I mean, worshipful masters for the lodge. That means they're like the guys who hold the ceremonies. They've been through. They sat all through. Like you can still, as long as you stay dedicated to the Blue Lodge, you're never really gonna get too deep into the symbolism. You'd have to step into probably the York Rite or the Scottish Rite, which is seems to me like the most occult initiated of the Masonic branches. So you gotta, and Michael Witcoff points out, you gotta get selected for this kind of some of this stuff. You gotta be invited. You gotta be talk to some other lodges and be notable as like, oh, this dude actually knows about symbolism and the occult. All right, let's extend him an invitation. Never really got to that phase. So.
Mm-hmm. Were many of the Masons that you did interact with
Yeah.
seem like they were into some of the other stuff?
No, not directly. Not in my particular lodge. My particular lodge was a lot more casual about these things. They're more interested in going to shooting guns, really. So
Mm-hmm.
going into the shooting ranges, and I think there was a little bit of a clique that enjoyed like hanging around motorcycles and getting drunk. So that's the kind of guy, old boys club.
Yeah, place to hang out with friends, essentially.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So outside of that, I'd probably say their biggest activity was probably charities. That's one of the things that the Michael Witkoff compliments on, which I definitely agree. There's a big emphasis in Masonry about being visible. I mean, this actually have an ulterior motive in the case of the grand scheme of the occult, but being visible and active in your community and being involved in charity is a big thing. Even for the normie Masons, it's always a big thing. When so we're unknowingly like spreading around the symbolism, we're like they're hapless foot soldiers in that context.
Mm-hmm. So were there good like there is charity aspects to Masonry, and there is getting to spend time with friends. Is there good stuff about Masonry? Were there things you did enjoy and like look back on and still think were good things?
Yeah. I mean, removes out of that framework of Masonry. Yeah, I think the idea of men spending time together away from women exclusively, in and of itself, is a good thing. I mean, it builds camaraderie, it builds community. Some people, just don't. When you're in co-ed environments, some guys can't really be guys when they're in co-ed environments, and that's with Masons, if they get it together and hang out, play cards, or have an emphasis on doing charity, it's all good stuff. But again, it's there's always an ulterior motive. Whenever the Masons are hanging around, they've got there's some guys who had like 1,000 pins on their lapels, and who knows what goofy symbolism that's being advertised on there, what's being shown off. It was I mean, yeah.
Right.
But I've mentioned this before, I think, to some of the people at my church, that some of the church communities can take a page or two out of like how Masons organize themselves and just say, hey, maybe we should have men's group, and I mean, even the Masons even have like the sorority down. They have the Order of the Eastern Star. Is that what it's called? What's the female version of the Masons? We had that there. They would meet at the lodge at different times.
Yeah, Order of the Eastern Star is one of them. I believe it might be co-ed in some branches. I don't know.
I had very little contact with that side of Masonry. All I know is that I know for certain that it was a bunch of old ladies, and they would meet at times when we were not at the lodge.
I think it is more for women, but they say it's co-ed. It's the impression that I got from it. But I haven't dug too much into that branch of it. But there's all sorts of little branches. I remember my mom told me she had been invited to like the Rainbow Kids or something, Rainbow Girls or something like that, which was a more, they have like youth-oriented branches.
They have, I know one. My a younger brother is set into Demole, that's specifically for younger. That's for kids. That's how the kids get brought into it. So if you're too young to be an actual Mason, you'll go to the Demole, which is Masonry for kids. So they got the man side, the woman side, and even the kid side. They have it all. And I mean, in some elements of that, it's more organizing. I give you that much. Kids want to hang out with kids, men want to hang out with men, and women want to hang out with women. So,
and there is something like that is good about bringing people together. And historically, we did have much more focus on the church and also other like social clubs and things, and like just more of a sense of community. And
Yeah, that's a
we
big
really
modern.
lack that.
It's like a modern trap these days. Actually, it's the fact that masonry gives a guy something to do and a place to belong, and whether you're into the occult or not, you're still like a foot soldier for sinister symbolism and pagan beliefs. So it's these systems of organizing people, very effective, very effective. We're just talking about the various segments like Demolay, Eastern Star, and the trap of it providing like a sense of community in today's modern time. Like, community's gone. That's one of the last talks I actually attended in the Masonry, just talking about how a lot of society's sense of community is falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the big lures for Masonry. It's just, outside of the fraternity element, it's just like a place to belong and things to do.
Mm-hmm. Definitely gives. So it does provide some good things, and in the sense that it offers a replacement
Yes,
for church and a lot of things that the church traditionally provided.
absolutely.
So tell us about the Masonic oaths. Did you take any oaths where you swore to allow Masons to kill you if they revealed your secrets?
Yes. So let's see here. Michael Witcoff made a interesting point where he says what we all that the oath involved is not revealing the secret, the handshakes and the passwords involved with those. I've forgotten most of that stuff. But he mentions everything else is technically on the table. You're just not allowed to give away the handshakes and the passwords. So, of course, I think I have a book that actually, like, step by step goes through the rituals and stuff. So you can actually talk about quite a bit about masonry when you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think we're gonna get another. What's that guy? That guy who William Morgan? We're not gonna get one of those on our hands.
Yeah,
But
and Morgan was, of course, the first anti-Mason who kind of wrote a book exposing some of the secrets of the order, and he was murdered for doing so. And he did specifically in his book put some of the secret handshakes and things
yes.
like that, which you say are the things that they would not reveal. Did you actually get the impression that they would kill you? That
Oh no! Like I mentioned, it's pretty goofy. If you drop that you're a Mason in public, some people will respond to that quite positively. I had a mechanic, like kind of like a back end, like a shitty mechanic, and take a look at one time at my bumper, which once had the, what is that, the G with
mm-hmm.
the compass.
Yeah.
So he saw that, and this guy was like my dad's mechanic, and he tells my dad, "Oh, this guy's got more credit than you." This dude used to give me guff because I couldn't speak Spanish. But when he saw that I was a Mason, he's like, "Oh man!" And he just kind of openly, flagrantly uh, prompted me to give him one of the secret handshakes, which he knew. So you do get some weird guys who, whether through legitimate means or illegitimate means, know the handshakes. This
Mm-hmm.
guy was suspect. Was not only was he couldn't speak English, but he was missing teeth and everything else. So I'm like, what does this guy know about masonry? But hey, it's out there. Everybody, basically, if they want to know, everyone can know, and then they can pretend. They can pretend that they're a member of a lodge. How we typically identify ourselves, in all honesty, is you would have a card, a membership card. That's really the golden ticket for identifying yourself as a Mason to other people.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to have your lodge number and your name and a stamp on it.
Interesting. So, do you feel obliged to not show the handshake? Like, even if you say you can't remember them very well, like, do you think ex-Masons, people who leave the order, are like, especially knowing what you know about the organization now, do you feel obligated to hold those oaths?
I think it's probably safer to not divulge into those, like not reveal them.
Mhm.
I could point if someone really wanted to hassle me. I actually have I can like give you the name of a book that tells you in the entire initiation. So I'm like, I'll just dude, if you I would say, hey, look, if you really want to know, just read it here. I think it's tempting, because I believe in the transcendent world. So it's just like if I take an oath that hey, you can kill me if I say this, and then I actually say it, you're tempting fate. I don't know. Who knows what kind of tripwire you're going to trigger there. It's a metaphysical tripwire. You're going to mess with that. So I'd rather not blab out those specific handshakes and passwords, but everything else is like the stupid rituals that surround those. I'd get into them, and I think
Mhm.
even your introductory video, that your 2 hour big video, pretty much gets into all the meat of those rituals. So.
Right. And yeah, that's something that Morgan's book discusses. Is it just goes through those first three rituals of the Blue Lodge, and just like in their entirety, and he shows the handshakes and all the symbolism around them.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I wonder how much that the Masonic, like, they must have made some changes in what they expect out of Masons in secrecy after that entire debacle. But I don't know exactly what changes were made, though.
Yeah, the movement of the upper echelon is as and the history of the movement of the upper echelon is anyone's guess, honestly.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a lot more difficult to study kind of the what's
Spec-
really going on at the upper levels of Masonry.
Specifically because it seemed like according to your research that they have like different geographical locations of masonry have followed different protocols. Like I forget one lodge in the south you mentioned has to get approval from Britain to exist. I think it was because primarily black members. Was it
Mhm.
Princeton Lodge?
It was Prince Hall Masonry.
Yes.
Um, the American Masons didn't really want to accept them, and so they went to the British Lodge to get permission to create their lodge, and the British Lodge allowed it.
Yeah, I've also heard that a lot of let's say notable like black people on the media, they all have their traces from that lodge, which is I think worth looking into.
Mhm.
Um,
And of course, so many people in the media are for Masons of one type or another, or tied to some sort of secret society. Um, So what was that like? How did you witness Masons propping each other up like in society? Like how much backdoor dealing is going on in Masonry?
it's definitely I saw even at my low goober level of masonry, I got to experience some of that, like I mentioned, like the mechanic I mentioned, especially when you realize that someone else is a mason, especially in the outside world. Like I think I used to work at what I used to work at a grocery store, and I realized I came across one of my customers at like this like big voting this big internal politics of masonry meeting, and it definitely changes your perception of them, especially if you're full on in with the masonry programming. You're like, oh, this guy's he's one of the brothers. That's how we refer to him. The worshipful brother. Brothers, we are called to help out one another in our times of needs. If you don't need a brother who knows he needs a job referral or recommendation, it is our duty as master masons to help one another out. That's pretty much the tone you go to, and I mean that in that element. That appealed to me big time. That's probably one of my big weaknesses. The idea of, well, we're part of a club and we got to help each other out, man. And it's just on a like that. Let's say very basic level of let's just say pseudo friendship or whatever. It has a big psychological appeal. Anything beyond that, it can only be my imagination. But like I said, even on my low level, I got to be on the receiving end of that.
Hmm.
So I can only imagine it's even more pronounced as you go up on higher echelons, especially if you've come across. I can only imagine if not only if you're Mason, but you also have like come across fellow people from like this, if you're both in Scottish Rite, like 32nd degree Scottish Rite members, then you feel a little more. It's like you're like the elite of the elite. Not only are we part of a secret organization, but we're on high up in there. So then you treat each other with I don't know, special adoration. I'd imagine.
Right. Yeah, and it is crazy to think about just how much these guys put each other up at the top levels, if it's even happening, at the lower levels. And we have Masons at all aspects of our society, like anyone, any type of profession can join. It's not reserved for the elites.
Absolutely. I think, and let's come to think of it, there's like certain lodges that specialize in members like being police officers and stuff like that. Um, judges, lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Yeah, we saw with the William Morgan story what was going on there. Many judges were Masons, and so many of the trials, people were calling out the corruption because Masons seemed to be defending other Masons that were on trial. It was a crazy time where a lot of this came out and how interconnected things were, and that was a big part of what the anti-Masons were fighting against, was that this was kind of corrupted politics and corrupted a lot of aspects of society because these guys were defending each other.
Yep, and it goes hand in glove with what I've experienced. That when I listen to that part of of your video, I'm like, yeah, that's how it is.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever hear about Masons defending each other, like with like legal troubles, with those types of things?
No, I wasn't that involved with various members. I think that the highest brush up I ever come across with like higher up individuals is like when I go to this like voting convention for inner Mason politics, and I came across I saw more well-to-do people, more productive individuals trying to be the head of this organization or that organization within the Masons. Um, I'm sure there's all types of incestuous politics going on in there. Um, but as far as me coming across that personally, no, just people in my lodge, rubbing elbows. That's it.
Mm-hmm. So what was it like for you just day to day? Like what did you have regular meeting times that you'd go to the lodge? Like how did that work for you?
Yeah, I think it was it a monthly Masonic meeting? At the very least, it was monthly, but in some cases, I think it would at least, I think we would have a meeting like twice a month, maybe. And then, you do when you're not initiating someone new, you just sit down in your big fake church room and, and they start off with "Good evening, brothers," and then the brothers all say "Good evening," and then they talk about order of business. They talk about fundraising, whatever projects are coming up. Very mundane administrative tasks when we weren't doing some other type of initiation or whatnot. Maybe we'd have someone come in and give a presentation. Um, or maybe we have someone come in and give an appeal for a charity, but the day like outside of these like at least once a month meetings, they're pretty boring actually. They're actually really boring. Uh, I think I hope I have the timeline right. Was it weekly or was it monthly? I think it was monthly. It was
Mm-hmm.
monthly.
So would you like after the meetings go out and hang out with the guys or?
Yeah. It was a little before and a little after. We'd have in the beforehand, we'd get the food ready, and we'd, so I was part of the kitchen team at one point, but I can't cook, so I had to order catering all the time. So
Perfect kitchen guy.
for exactly, it was kind of goofy, and we'd make sure the brothers were fed, and we chatted up, and then we'd go upstairs handle our business, and then some of the guys would come downstairs and they'd crack open the bottles and they'd goof off some more, and then they'd go their own separate ways after a couple of hours, depending on what was going on. So
Mhm. So
really
when you
mundane stuff.
so when you were having those monthly meetings, is that when you would be in uniform?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Hmm.
Yeah. And of course, there was almost always, some other event we were invited to, like, hey, we're going to go to, Lodge X is going to be doing a joint meeting with Lodge Y. Let's all go meet up in there. And then they do something specific, like, hey, we're going to do an introductory course on the Scottish Rite in case you're interested in joining, or the York Rite, or yada, yada, yada.
Mm. So what did you think of the uniform that you are wearing? Like, how did you feel about that? You joked about it, the uniform a little before, looking like a crotch bib.
Yes.
So you clearly don't feel great about it.
Yeah, now looking back at it, it's pretty stupid. I think typically it's the crotch bib, and then you get a necklace full of ornaments. I don't remember, and depending on your rank, would determine what kind of necklace you'd wearing. If you're a master mason, you'd wear a top, not a master. If you were the worshipful master of a lodge, you'd wear this big top hat. And typically you had, depending on your rank as well, you'd also had like in your duties, you'd also have like a staff of some sort, like a big staff. Mm, it was pretty goofy. The one thing I did like about it was you'd get everyone wearing a suit and tie. That's pretty snazzy. But the other things you put on top of it were just they're dumb. They're dumb.
So we've talked about this a little in the past, but you talked about how it was a little bit humiliating, some of the stuff that they put you through with the ritual and maybe the uniforms. Like, talk a little bit about what that was like. Did it feel like hazing?
Yeah, it is a sense of hazing, and the strange thing about hazing is that it does build a sort of bond with the guy. So when I went to my the opening night, it was about 8 guys at once. So here we are, 8 guys, all in a dark room, wearing a bunch of, not knowing what to expect. One dude joking around. Oh yeah, I heard they're gonna have us skin a goat, and bathe in its blood. We're kept in the dark. We're given very explicit instructions on when we are to start. You have to like bang on a door, and then you're led around blindfolded into a room that everyone is wearing business professional, and here you are wearing these misshapen pajamas, blindly being led around and given these esoteric speeches as you can't see. And in the time these esoteric speeches, you don't have any context for them. You don't really know what's going on, and yeah, it's you're a spectacle. Not only are you a spectacle, but you're a spectacle where you can't even see who's looking at you or what. And in this case, I don't think you even know what the room looks like. Their fake church where they have their meetings. So you're completely going in there blind. You're completely vulnerable.
So that's your very first entry into the actual lodge, is you blindfolded doing this ritual.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's crazy. That's, and what did you think about what they were saying with the ritual, like, and all the symbolism of what was happening? Did you have time to think much on what was they were saying?
It's I think what usually you play the role, like in the third degree, you play the role of Hiram Abiff.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the third ritual the most. The first ritual, you are talking to like actors who are pretending to be worksmen, I believe. But your particular character is not named. I think you just play yourself because you're just kind of like a hapless blindfolded man being led around. Oh, one thing I remember as you walk around, it's supposed to simulate you being in like a mason's lodge, like an actual like crafting mason's lodge. So as you walk around, you'll have people start banging on things as if they're working on their woodwork. I don't know. You're pretty much in a state of shock and confusion, because how many times are you led around in a big room ritual like that? Especially if you're completely on the, like, I come from a Protestant background, so ritual and Protestants don't really go mix well together. So I didn't have any idea what to really make of it. You're just floating in space, man. You're just like, what's going on?
Hmm.
Oh, I hope there's something too gritty or bloody that's gonna happen. I hope I don't have to skin a goat.
Yeah.
That's what's going on through your mind at the moment.
So, what did you think, when you did have more time to like sit back and look at what had just happened? Like, what did you think about all the symbolism around Solomon and Hiram Abiff? And did you did you contemplate what they were trying to do with all that?
I mean, I was one of the gullible ones who took it at face value, especially because at the time I was a type of perennialist. So, I'd fallen out of Protestantism, and I was more like, oh, I believe there's some kind of genuine, some force or will of the universe, man. So.
Hmm.
I just took it as, oh well, in the Temple of Solomon, we work on men's character and whatnot, and I just kind of took it at face value. I'm like, oh, that sounds good. And fortunately, I didn't have any deep insights on it. Like, I know if you analyze it through a Christian lens, whatever they give you is complete nonsense. But uh, I was just there to hang out, and eventually, like, as I mentioned, that kind of ended up biting me in the rear end because I took this stuff on. They play up the morality within the lodge. They do give you a lot of lectures on basic morality, how we are
Hmm.
encouraged encourage the brothers not to, I don't know if they use the word sin, but to correct an erring brother and pull him out of his wrongful ways. And that's the element I walked away with it the most because that kind of thing kind of appeals to my personality. And when I realized, and that was the catalyst of why I eventually left the lodge, because I realized all this talk about, not being a moral piece of garbage was ignored by the lodge. They were enabling each other's bad behavior, and I'm like, well, this is the one element of the lectures I took seriously. You got to be an ethical person. So when I saw the lodge didn't take that element of seriously, and not that that stuff was deep, but it was appealing. So I said, "This is nonsense," and I walked away from it.
Hmm. Hmm. So when you got into masonry, you mentioned earlier that you asked a little bit maybe about like the conspiratorial things that you'd heard about masonry and the vast amount of power they held. Is that what part of what made you interested in masonry? Is that power appealing?
Um, to me personally, no, but there's a mystique to it. The idea of, oh, we did have a lot of lectures about the ancient age of masonry, how it's this old tradition, how they used to be the Knights Templar, and so there's a mystique of being and a draw of being part of a prestigious historical organization. However, when it came to the power side, like it being involved with high powerful people, that element didn't appeal to me, which is kind of is reflected in the fact that I just remained in the Blue Lodge. I was
Hmm.
ultimately there just to hang out and get the extra brownie points involved with being involved with the Masons. um, if it was a Saturday morning cartoon, I would definitely be the one of the lower level minions, definitely not one of the higher end operators you
Yeah.
know
Would you say that many masons are drawn to the power?
oh yeah. At least in a, let's say, in a in a business networking sense, yes. I mean, from my experience from my lodge, a lot of the guys, they were just there to hang out and to network. That's a big draw whenever you go to like some kind of meeting with adults and you're a guy taking your profession seriously. It's great to have access to all these people in all walks of life like that and to make business connections. Hey, if you need somebody to do some home improvement, you're gonna come across some blue collar guy who specializes that in the Masons. Um, but and damn, does it look good in your resume when you say, well, I'm a high, you slap on some fancy masonry words on your profile, just a way to, maybe you might put it like in a covert manner, like, oh, I'm on the level, or I'm the square, as you mentioned in one of your videos. And you'll draw in some fish. You're like, oh, this guy's a worshipful brother. All right, I'll give you a job position, or I'll give you access to this and that and that. That
Mm-hmm.
you'll get that kind of end. As far as anything beyond that, I was too low in the ranks to see anything beyond, let's say, the business power connections you can make from it.
Yeah. But yeah, even at, yeah, as we had discussed earlier, like even at the lower levels, it can help you
Yes,
get a step forward.
absolutely. Looking for a job. I mean, if you're a Mason and you're active, you're gonna get some pull. Like I think in my professional field, which is finance, there was a one of the older members was a pretty well off financial accountant. So that if I ever needed to work, I know I can lean on him. Like, hey, can you throw in a good word for me? I'm looking for a job. That kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. And some of that's really not a bad thing. I mean, people would do the same thing at a church or any type of
Yes.
community that they've have. Like we help each other out. That is, I would say, like on some level, can be a good aspect of masonry, but it can also very easily become a corrupt thing where you're helping each other like escape crimes
Precisely.
or
Which
or
is
like
what you see over there. Like I mentioned, these guys would enable each other's bad behavior all the time. You know.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, and that can go all the way up to protecting people for their murder, like in the case of Morgan,
Yes.
um, or or also just more corrupt ways of pushing people into positions of power rather than kind of helping somebody out when you have the power to offer somebody a job. Like, you know,
Like
that's
this.
different from pulling strings and manipulating things so someone can get a job.
Yeah. And when you're with like comparing this to like let's say compare it to a church, there is a stronger sense of zeal that you have when you're part of the Masons that's not there from what I've seen from church communities, because it has these hazing rituals and it has a veneer of secrecy in it, you feel more fealty towards helping out other Masons and being helped out Masons than you would in a church community because it gives you that like, hey, to join a church, what do you got to do? Like give tithe and show up, you know. Well, with Masonry, you had to get humiliated, then you had to memorize these goofy speeches. It's the bar was higher. So you have a little extra zeal when it comes to being helped and helping out other Masons. It's not hard for one to see. Well, if you get thrown a few federal agents here and there, especially if an international organization like Masonry, we were told all the time in the lodges how we have separate branches in the different countries. We would have visitors from there was this one Irish guy, was it Irish or Scottish guy. He was so Scottish we can barely understand what he was saying. Like he was like that ethnic,
Mm.
like if you're a really ambitious person, or if you're a glow in the dark federal agent, if you get access to this organization, you can get into a lot of places with the right skills. Get access
Yep.
to a lot of information. I'll get into a lot of doors. So,
Yeah, and we certainly see like a lot of these Masonic organizations and connected organizations are deeply tied with intelligence agencies. So we see all sorts of crazy networking going on here.
yeah. So comparing it to like a church community, it's like it's comparable, but it's at the same time it's not. It's just the people the strangely enough the Masons are a lot more. They're a lot more enthusiastic about helping each other out as opposed to people from your church community or even like people to your neighborhood. It's easy to overlook that. It's a small detail, but it's pretty surprising when I look back and like, nah, man, these guys they were all in when it came to helping each other out to the point where it's easy to see them sweeping each other's crimes under the rug.
Mm-hmm. So you said that kind of seeing some of the degeneracy in maybe in masonry kind of pushed you away. What was it specifically? It was just guys drinking and like partying, and what was going on that seemed so negative to you and
Nice.
immoral.
Yeah, in this particular case, I saw somebody getting married that was had some crazy bachelor parties, and the guys were just cool and joking about this dude just cheating on his wife or his fiance, and like when I heard that, I was stone faced at the time, but like my inner character just got like my jaw hit the floor, and I found out that this was a kind of a common occurrence, and that's a kind of a personal pet peeve of mine. You know, like I was not down with people, you know, cheating on each other. But these guys, they were completely fine with it. I was shocked. I was like, what? This is what's going on? You know, when you guys are hanging out with each other, just like enabling this type of, you know, if and then, you know, occasionally the brothers would have their like maybe like once a year, maybe twice a year, depending on the event, they'd come and invite their wives over in a specific like maybe an open lodge event, you know, and it's just like, how can you, like, you know, greet this guy's wife and knowing that what enabling this kind of behavior? It's just like scummy, you know. So that's the event when I figured out that like pretty much everybody was aware of this and were supporting it. This was a guy who was going up in the ranks. I just had to wash my hands of it. I was just sick, you know. So that's when it struck me that all this talk about being good men was just nonsense. It was just hanging with the boys and being a degenerate.
So did this, like, is this kind of what pushed you back towards Christianity, actually? Like, after you left the lodge? Or?
No, I didn't get back into Christianity until I was doing my own debauchery. And I went more into the perennialist mindset, which is an extension of what Masonry is anyway.
Certainly.
So I didn't. So, you know, I didn't put two and two together and realize that, you know, one of the biggest reasons that these guys didn't really care about ethics is, you know, their lack of Christianity, you know. So it certainly did help, though. Not that I feel like it, like, you know, if you leave something good behind, you typically feel like there's something missing. Leaving the Masons behind, I didn't feel like there was anything missing from it, you know, outside of like, oh, I wish I was hanging out with a bunch of guys. But outside of that simple thing, there was no crater or hole in my heart. Like, it was pretty easy to leave.
So you've clearly, you know, come a long way since all of that, and you've gotten into orthodoxy, and you've studied Masonry a bit more in a different way now. Like, so what do you think about guys like, you know, Albert Pike and Manley P. Hall and these high-level Masons that talk about how they purposely mislead the low-level Masons and manipulate them? What is it? What do you take?
Well, let's see here. From my reading of Michael Witcoff's stuff and your videos, it seems like Albert Pike, he was, let's see, I mean, he's a perennialist. He seems to be all over the place. Apparently, even even occult commentators kind of mentioned that Albert Pike's all over the place theologically speaking. It's it's kind of like, it's almost like they're con men, right? And let's say Albert Pike is a little different from Manley P. Hall. Like, Manley P. Hall seemed to be a lot more grounded in his occultism. He was a 33rd degree Scottish Rite Mason. Like, if you read these guys' work, I don't see what's so fascinating about them, because what was great about them besides, like, what Manley P. Hall wrote like 150 books, like, so he was a writer, like, big deal. There's nothing super appealing about these people outside of how goofy some of their Kabbalistic description of the world and how it works is. It's like these guys are up their own asses about how oh, I've studied of this weird pagan religion and that weird pagan religion, and we're all the same. It's there's like an irony of when you see, how would I phrase it? You see those memes on the internet talking about you know, let's say like hippie chicks about how they're spiritual and not religious. You know, it's like Manley P. Hall and Albert Pike basically fit in that paradigm. So they're like the equivalent of that, like of your hippie chick, except they use big words. Like, that's how deep you get with these people. Like Michael Witcoff points out that you always get a hint, a letter of the true word of the secret. Then you have to learn this particular phrase, and you have to read this particular book, and it's like an endless goose chase of figuring out this secret code that to the secret of life that never manifests itself, because all it is a constant finger pointing at another hint. It's like a never-ending goose chase. So with Manley P. Hall and Albert Pike, it's kind of the same. You end up being a more intellectual variation of your annoying hippie aunt.
Yes, I don't disagree with you. What do you feel like specifically on the issue of like they talk about how uh, we've got this? I've got a quote here from Pike where he talks about how um, the blue degrees are the outer court or portico of the temple. Part of the symbols are displayed there to the initiate, but he is intentionally misled by false interpretations.
Yes,
I mean,
the
that's
Gnosticism. Yes.
that's what I'm
Yeah,
especially
that I mean,
interested in.
and that element, I mean, it just shows that that they're elitist scum, you know?
Mhm.
Like not only are we the only people here who have the the depth of your classical like annoying hippie aunt, right? Because this guy's theology is all over. These guys' theology are shallow, unenlightened, ironically, and just empty. You know, they're up their own butts about it. They're saying, "Oh, these people are too stupid to understand my absurd theological conclusions, which are shared by typical hippie." There's no truth, man. It's all what you make it. It's relativism. You can talk to a 14-year-old boy and he'll come up with the same conclusions, except he's not up his own butt. It's spiritual delusion. These guys are deluded in a kind of pathetic way. So it's not only are they conceited, they're conceited over nothing. Their deep secrets are all over universities. It's just that they're not up in their weird freaking treehouse thinking they figured out some gold that you can get from at any community college.
Mm. Have you ever read that or know of that book, The Secret?
I think it's referenced in Michael Witkoff's book, but I know the title. I don't think I've come across the book itself.
It's one of these new age books that basically just says that the secret to life is just like positive thinking and like
Good vibes, good vibration. Like that's what these guys are, and they think, like, oh, the secret of good vibes. I have the secret of the universe. Oh, it's the most guarded secret of masonry. It's like, come on, dude. Like, these are what the potheads say. These are what like people who trip on acid come with. If you got to see like the parody videos of like of Jay Dyer being the psychonaut. Like, hey man, I saw the Keebler-Ells, bro, and like they told me that I'm God, man. That's the secret, bro. It's like, and that's what Manley P. Hall is when he's sober.
Yeah, I mean that's really what this stuff does boil down to is like that all religions are the same and that we are God, like
Yes.
and they're like and that's so deep, man. And Lucifer's the good guy, man. It's crazy, man.
This Duncan
Like
Trussell, I've seen stuff being pushed by Duncan Trussell. This is what Duncan Trussell says. This is what it's just like, oh, it's all about like getting really high and like being one with the universe, bro. It all gets you to the same place, man. It's all about peace and love. It's in that respect, like Albert Pike and Manly B. Hall are more ridiculous than your typical cosmonaut.
mm,
Like I think Terrence McKenna is less ridiculous than Albert Pike, because that's basically what they are. We don't have recordings. I don't think we have recordings of these men speaking, so maybe they don't have Terrence McKenna's lisp.
we
But
do have Manly P. Hall recordings actually. You can
oh,
listen to them on YouTube.
does he have a Terrence McKenna lisp?
Uh, no, not quite. He's very boring to listen to.
Oh,
It's easier to read Hall than listen to him. I would say that.
bloviated. It's like all the memes about. You ever see those Smugglies about like, oh, haven't you read your Bible? It says you're supposed to be tolerant against people. No, of course I don't read it myself because I don't believe anything inside that thing. But I'm quoting your scripture towards you. That's what you get with Albert Pike and Manly Behold. These bloviated, absurd balloons of self ego when they have no depth.
Mhm.
Um, Yeah, I would say Terrence McKenna is greater than Manley P. Hall, because at least he'll tell you it out straight, and he doesn't think he's anything. At least I don't think so. We're going to he'll just go out and say it's all about the mushroom. It's all about taking high elements of LSD and becoming one with the universe. I mean, I know.
Yeah, I mean, on some level, like, yeah, it's a very like similar message, but then, with some of these people pushing this message, there's also the element of like, and because I have this sacred knowledge, I am better for it than everyone else, and therefore I can make these decisions on a grandiose scale for all of humanity because they are so ignorant in not understanding the secrets that I have.
Yeah, it's. I think Michael Witcoff is on the nose when he says that these people are basically possessed. Well, even if it's by their own arrogance, their egos are so out of proportions and their secrets are so mundanely stupid. It's pretty ridiculous.
Well,
These
I
are
mean,
pretty ridiculous and tragic. Almost, they're almost tragic if they weren't so damn absurd.
mhm. I mean, I do think we have a literal element of possession going on with some of these guys. I mean, Manley P. Hall is one of those who talks about like communing with, figures, these like ascended masters type figures that
Yeah.
are like essentially, from a Christian point of view, they have to be like fallen angels and demons that these people are communing with. But from their point of view, like they're saying that these are humans that have ascended into godhood.
Yeah, there's definitely something demonic going on with them. I mean, when you open yourself up to that much occultism and self-delusion, you're not far off some guys. It's just like a house of demons. You become a house of demons. Like as Wickoff says, it's like they've hollowed themselves out. I can't believe you would. I can't believe being in. I couldn't put myself in the shoes of Albert Pike, thinking I have secret knowledge when you can talk to your local stoner and come up with the same fucking conclusions. So they're under some serious spiritual deception and hollowing out and opening themselves up to be possessed.
So, what do you think about, your everyday Mason? You were one yourself who didn't climb too high into it. Do you think that they're in a cult? Like, are they being abused in the just by being a part of that organization?
I would say yeah. I would say yes. Strangely enough, actually, it seems that a lot of fraternities have this model where I spoke to a friend of mine in the church not long ago, and I asked him about his experience with fraternities, and a lot of, let's say, come across the Elks. I don't know if you go across in your wherever you live, you cover, like I have we have various lodges here in the East Coast, and there's an Elks Lodge, and who knows, like the Moose Lodge, and
Hmm.
they all have pagan occult symbolism. This friend of mine was in a fraternity that I think Calvin Coolidge was once a member of, and he mentioned back in the old days this particular fraternity used to wear robes, dark robes, and go to a basement and worship a goat's head. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, they didn't. Like, by the time he joined it, they didn't do that anymore. And his parents used to be part of a type of like Armenian version of Masonry, like not Masonry, but something similar to like these used to be like, I don't know, Knights of Armenia. So all these fraternities, strangely enough, have some type of occultic element to it, and I would think it is fair to say that yeah, these are cults because you're being lied to. If you're a Blue Lodge member, the whole story that you're given in your rituals is complete bunk, because that's not what the designers are conveying. They're conveying to you a different message. Um, what they say that you're doing is not what they are actually doing. Um, and if you got morons like Albert Pike and Manley P. Hall and J.D. Bookie, I think I got his name there.
Hmm.
J.D. Brook, whatever his name is. If these are the high end initiates, and they're giving you a different story, and then openly saying, yeah, low level Masons are stupid and deserve to be misled. Yeah, it's fair to say that these are cultish, and I think I'd go even a step further to say like a lot of fraternities in general, just basically based on the information I've recently come across, a lot of the fraternities should be looked at with a discerning eye, because they seem to be there's always seems to be some kind of weird goofy paganism involved in that. So I don't know what the church's opinion on fraternities are in general, but uh, be careful with these exclusive organizations. That's what I'd say.
Mm-hmm. And they're often, so many of these types of organizations are, even in just like college frats, they're used as recruitment grounds for, the higher up occult organizations.
Yes.
And they seem to be created potentially, perhaps for just that cause.
Yeah.
So it's been great talking to you. I'd like to end with just giving you a chance to say anything you'd like to any Freemasons that might be watching. You just did have a chance there with that last question. It felt like you were starting to talk to Masons. Is there anything else you'd want to say to any Masons that might be watching?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a Christian and you're a Mason, you got to understand that the theology that there's the Masonry has a theology that it pushes. It is in direct contradiction to Christianity, and the leaders of these organizations hate you and think that you're stupid. So you should definitely not stick around if you're not a Christian. Just this part two of what I just said, the later half of the organizers thinking that you're dumb and deserve to be misled. That should be enough for you to get out. The theology of people on the upper echelon is absurdly stupid, and you can get it from your local stoner, or cosmonaut. So it's nothing deep, and you can find community elsewhere that's not toxic. So and that's not abusing you and doesn't make you wear crotch bibs. So you can find all this stuff in better places, in more productive places, and I'd actually put up a warning against fraternities in general, because they all seem to have these themes. Why? I'm not sure, but it seems to be so. Don't leave the Masons, and join the Elks. So that's what I would also recommend. The videos on this channel and Eric Jones Picking Bones and Michael Witcoff's books on the Masons and their lies is a good, easy, digestive handbook of why you shouldn't be part of these organizations, whether you're a Christian or not. So that's what I'd say.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, Michael is another ex-Freemason. He was more into the occult side of things. If you haven't heard of him, he's another great resource to look at. Another ex-Freemason that you can listen to. He has a great interview with Dyer that you can check out. I'll link that one down below because it's a great one to listen to. So
he actually has two interviews now.
Oh yeah, they did a follow-up recently as well. So Excellent. Well, Gabe, thank you so much for coming on. It was great to have you. Great to hear a little bit about your experience in the lodge.
Thanks for having me, Eric.
Awesome. Well, you have a great night, and everybody stay safe out there. Enjoy your time stuck at home, or hopefully not stuck at home soon.
All right, take care.
Have a good night.